Welcome. Tonight is the first episode of Bigfoot Wildman Booger show. I'm Marianne, and this is Jen, my co-host. And
Hello.
We're here to take you all on a journey about the Missouri Bigfoot. This show is predominantly going to be about Missouri happenings, sightings, expeditions. We know at some point we'll have to venture on out into somewhere else because we will have covered everything at that point. But for right now, we're going to start in Missouri. And Jennifer will be doing every so often just weird things from Missouri. Because guess what? We're both Missouri girls. She's currently
Missouri's
in
weird.
Right?
I'm currently in Minnesota.
Well, we're working on that.
We have weird in Minnesota. We have Bigfoot in Minnesota. We have hairy northern woods.
Yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're doing. We're going to be talking about the things that go on here in Missouri, because Missouri is, and I actually looked this up today, we are number 9 in Bigfoot sightings. And I think partly that is just because we don't have that many people out there investigating it and reporting it. I'm sure if we had all the reports listed, we would be a whole lot higher than number 9.
And there's still a lot of thick woods in Missouri thick woods.
Well, when you have counties that are nicknamed Booger County,
Well,
what's that tell you, right?
Booger dogs.
Well, and what is that? The Ozark Howler. We can talk about that too.
Yeah.
Even though that's not Bigfoot. But, we got all kinds of things we can talk about. So
all of the things.
the things.
Well, tell the people what drew you to Bigfoot. What was your first thing that said, man, this is my jam. I want to go look for this dude. I want to see what's going on. I want to see if the stories are true. What was it?
Well, it started when I was a little kid. When the summers were really hot and it's too hot to be outside, go to the library and lay on the marble floors of the old library building and look at the Bigfoot books or the Loch Ness or anything like that.
Right.
I was doing that as a little kid. And I always have had a curiosity, but life happens, and we get married, have kids, do whatever.
Nope.
And
you just lost your sound. There you are.
I always watched everything that came on TV, but back in 2019, one of the girls that I worked with was telling me that there had been a Bigfoot report to the local police in the area where we worked. And I said, how do you know that? Well, her husband listened to the scanner. And and so there was a report, right? So that prompted me to get on the BFRO and start to dig around, and found out that there are expeditions in the state of Missouri, which I was completely and totally oblivious to. Thought they were only on, the West Coast, that type of thing. So I said about getting signed up for it, announcing to Robert, guess what? We're going Bigfoot hunting.
You said, okay, Cool.
He's just kind of like, excuse me, we're doing what? So
I'm
at
driving.
that point, yeah, he's like, I'm camping. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm camping. So 2019 was our first expedition. And it was funny when we pulled up, I looked at him, I said, this is either going to be the greatest thing we've ever done or it's the craziest thing. And we're going to know in about 5 minutes.
Right.
And turned out it was the best thing we've ever done. I mean, we've got friends that we made that first expedition that have become very, very good friends. You know, there are go-tos. We've been to multiple states with them and done all kinds of things. But so we went on this expedition. We had no idea. I mean, I read everything that they gave us, but still it doesn't prepare you for anything, you know. And
Sure.
after dinner, we sat around, chit chat a little bit, and come 9 o'clock, they're like, "Come on, gear up, let's go," And I'm thinking, we've not even been out and looked around and in the daylight. How do we know where we're going? I mean, all these kind of things run through your head of, oh, holy crap, we're headed to the woods, And we did, and we went, 3 or 4 different locations, and the gentleman that was leading it, he would take all like the newbies, as they call them, first timers, and they kind of went with him. And we had been to about 3 different places. And finally, it's about midnight, and we meet back up with the other 2 groups in an area. Now we're all there, but we all go different directions. And so our group takes off down this road. We get down the road and we step off into the woods, and basically he's like, let's just sit down and listen, right? Okay. So we're all sitting in a circle, except for Robert. He was like, I'm not sitting down, because if I sit down, I won't get up. So all of us are sitting there, and I'm watching the girl next to me because she's completely camoed out, camo pants, camo hoodie, the whole 9 yards. And I'm kind of snickering to myself going, okay, what are you doing?
Right. What are you looking
And
for? What are you hiding from?
right? Well, she decides she's going to take a nap. So she pulls the hoodie over her head, right? And kind of just balls up. And at that point, I'm looking around, taking stock of what's going on. And when I look back at her, it's like all of a sudden she's not there because she blends in so well. So then I'm like, okay, the camo works. Okay, quit being snarky. Camo
Quit
works.
being so judgy.
Right. Don't be judgy. And so and there's a conversation going on the whole time. The guys in the group are talking, but I'm focused on her. And I hear them, they're talking about how many are there of us, who's sitting where, this type of stuff, right? And come to find out, so when they decide that there's an extra person with us, so to speak, they stand up, move toward it. Well, it jumps up, rolls over this small berm, and runs away. Well, at that point, everybody is now standing up facing that because of the commotion. And they're all talking about it. Everybody that's in the group still here. So, whatever was with us is now gone.
Now gone. But what was with us?
Exactly. They're like, what did you see? What did you see? Well, they're discussing all this. And so Robert and I are standing, we're the farthest ones back. We have not moved up. And there's she might've been 14-year-old girl stand there with us. And we start to hear this loud slapping noise behind us. And she looks at me and Robert looks at me, and I'm like looking at him going, yeah, I hear this too. So at that point I turn around and I took a couple of steps toward the noise. And at that point, this large, upright, hairy, whatever, bipedal steps out from behind the tree. And it's, I don't know, 25 yards. And I mean, you can see it. You can't see the features on its face because it was a full moon. So it was all shadowed. But here this thing stood, and it's standing right out there. It takes another step and goes back behind the tree, but steps out on the other side. It was like it wanted to be seen. It wanted everybody to pay attention to it and not what was running away. At that point, Robert goes to get the guy that's leading the expedition. And we're trying to show him and he's so excited about what's happened that he never can focus on what's right out there in front of us. And he's dancing around, he's all excited. And then we start to get movement off to the side of what's in front of us. It's off to our kind of left-hand side. There's movement. Well, at this point, he decides we're being surrounded and we need to get out of there. And it was like, wait a minute, this is what we came out here for, right?
Right.
And I'm like, no, I'm not going anywhere. This is what we came out here for. This is what we're supposed to be out here for, right? And basically, I was told if I didn't leave willingly, I was going to be picked up and carried out of the woods.
What?
Yeah, right?
Who's going to be picking you up and carrying you out of the woods except maybe Robert? And even
That's about
then, he takes his life in his hands. Come on.
So
Sorry, I just can't get over the fact that some man told you to move. That's funny. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So I'm trying not to make a scene. It's my first time, right?
Playing it cool. Just playing it cool.
Playing it cool. So, yeah. So we, begrudgingly leave the woods. We go out, and as we're walking out, you can hear there is something following us out. It's walking out with us. And so we get back out onto the asphalt, and there's a slight grade we have to go up. And one of the other groups was standing at the hill, and there was a person who was therming us as we came out of the woods, right? And as we're walking up the road, that person says, "Hey, you left somebody standing down there." And we're all like, we're laughing, kind of snickering, going, "No, we've had this conversation. We didn't leave anybody, no." And so they were able to therm it, and we were able to go back later and determine there was one of the guys with us, I think he was like 6'5". This thing was about a foot taller than him. So it was about 7.5 feet tall.
Damn.
Standing out in the road, just watching us walk back. So, the next day, it was funny. Everybody was coming up and talking to us about it. And they're like, you don't understand. It's like the trifecta. Your first night out, you have a Class A sighting, your first time, and it was a full moon. You've had all the things that, are unheard of, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. Because I'm thinking, well, isn't this what we paid for? I mean, I didn't know any different. I was naive about these things. But so we went back to that area during the day, and Robert found in a mud hole a track. And now there was water in it, and we put the dollar bill down to it and took pictures of it. There was water in it. The other gentleman went back and he tried to cast it, and it really didn't turn out very well. But yeah, he found that one track that was coming out of the woods, not going into it. And we found the area where we sat down, and the odd thing about the area that we sat down in was it looked like a bedding area, but it was.
Were you in the middle of their bedroom?
Yeah, we were.
Where they slept?
In their bedroom. Yeah, exactly. And so, because that whole area there were no saplings, there was nothing. It was completely flat. And if you stood on the little berm that was behind it and looked out into the rest of the forest, there's saplings everywhere. I mean, every 2 or 3 feet, there were saplings. So this area had nothing. So several large somethings had been sleeping in this area, because it was every bit of a good size, like bedroom, like a 10 by 10 or a 12 by 12, something like that.
Sure.
That was the size of it. So,
how many do you think?
I don't know. At least 3, because there was the small one. And I think it was Mama that stepped out from behind the tree.
I was going to ask, do you think it was Mama that was distracting so Baby could get away?
That's just my personal opinion. Don't have anything to go on as far as that. But I just felt like that was Mama trying to distract. Yeah, right?
I mean, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. And then there was one more moving around out there. So there were 3 out there with us that made themselves known,
Okay.
So, small family that lives out there, don't know, but that was my first experience, and at that point, I was hooked. I was gonna do that regardless from now on.
Yeah. And now look at you. Now who's the director of the BFRO?
Well, I'm not the director. I lead the
Yeah, but you're
expeditions. I
hey,
lead the expeditions in the state of Missouri, Oklahoma, and Arkansas.
and Arkansas. Is that all
That's all. That's all.
for now? For now.
For now. For now, until I can figure
The
out
whole
something else.
Midwest. Marianne, Midwest BFRO. This is my area. You could. Literally. Dakotas, Minnesota, Illinois, all the way down. All the way down.
Well, yeah. Well, and the thing about it is some states, there's just not a lot of BFRO people, and some of them just don't want to do it. They don't want to lead expeditions. That's not their thing. And that's okay. That's okay. I like leading the expeditions. It's fun. So yeah, that was the first. That's what got us hooked. That's what got us started. We've been to some different states. We went to Kentucky, and was part of Charlie Raymond's expeditions down there. They were interesting. Had some stuff go on down there. We've been to Oklahoma. Now, we did an expedition this spring in Oklahoma. It's the first one's been held in Oklahoma in several years. And one of the gentlemen, he had a Class A sighting, which is a visual. And he had that during the day. So, yeah, during the day. It was really funny. We were out doing some scouting during the day, and Robert and I, another gentleman, and we look back, and the guys in the vehicle behind us are gone. And I'm calling them, and I'm like, "Where are you at?" And they're like, we think we just saw
go.
And so I'm like, "Okay, stay put. We're on our way back." So we're flying back down the road. It's funny. We pull up on them. The SUV is sitting in the middle of the road, and all 4 doors are open like it's been abandoned. I'm like, oh God. So one of the gentlemen, he's standing about 25 feet into the woods. And I walk up to him. I said, "Okay, what's going on?" And he said, and he's just as calm as he can be. He's like, "Yeah, I'm standing here." He said, "We got out. We were looking because they thought they saw some tree structures, right? So that's what made him stop. That's what made him get out of the vehicle." So they're out looking at that. 2 gentlemen have taken down the game trail to look for other things. This gentleman stays put, and he has movement out of his right side. And he kind of looked, and he said he thought that it was the landowner walking up on him. But he said, the guy is brown head to toe. And he said, my brain is saying that's not the landowner. But he said, it was like nothing was working right. He knew that wasn't the landowner, but yet he thought it was the landowner. And it walks up toward him at an angle and then hits the trail and walks in front of him. And he said he can see it as it's coming out between the trees. He can see it, that it's, approximately 7 feet tall. It has reddish brown hair that is about 3 inches long. And he said it just walked down in front of him, never made a sound. And it's going down the trail that the 2 gentlemen were on, the game trail. And he said, 2 or 3 minutes, they emerge where he can see them. And he said, "Did you see it? Did you see it?" And they're like, "What?"
See what?
They hadn't seen anything. So it had either stepped off and let them pass and they never saw it, just wild stuff. We found what we thought maybe was a track or 2 there. But in that part of Oklahoma, they talk about them like it's common knowledge. The locals down there know where they're at. There's places they won't go because they're like, that's their part of the woods. Everybody you can stop anybody and talk to them. Even the park ranger down there where we stayed was willing to talk to us. And that's very, unusual,
Okay.
because normally you can't get them to admit to you that there's anything like that in the parks, or they just roll their eyes and go on type deal. They don't want anything to do with it. But down there, he had no problem telling us, "Oh yeah, they're here. They're here." He said he'd worked down there about 10 years and had about 15 reports in that 10 years of right there on
Wow.
the lake where we stayed. Yeah. Yeah. And then this spring, we did an expedition on the Niangua here in Missouri.
Mm.
And we had been last spring up there and had the self illuminating eye shine.
Okay.
And I'd never had it before. And I kind of, was being judgy. And I did
You.
me, right? Well, I mean, you hear people talk about all these things. And if you haven't experienced it, sometimes you're like, you know. And so we were sitting there one night, this one gentleman and I were talking, and he's Thurman, and he starts to move around, and I asked him, I said, "Do we have visitors?" And he said, "Yeah." And he has some of that native blood, so he knows. He has like sixth sense. He just knows when they're there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's watching a couple, and finally, um, there's just these. It looks like flashlights, but they're not like radiating light. They're just lit up.
Oh yeah.
And it was a blue white, right? And I mean, it was way up off, too early for the lightning bugs, and they were just solid. They were there. They weren't moving. It was just really, really bizarre. But what was funny about that is we're watching them, and he says, "Oh my God, there's something walking over there." And he hands me, his FLIR. And yeah, here's this large upright figure walking. And I'm like losing my mind. And we're standing on like this little platform, right? And I'm like, I've threw his FLIR at him and jumped off this platform. And I'm running through the campground towards it. And I don't know, I get a little ways, and all of a sudden my brain kicks in and goes, "What are you doing?
What are you
You're
doing?
running
Running,
towards it." Right?
running
Yeah,
towards the
exactly.
danger.
Exactly. And at that point, I stopped because it was going to be coming around the corner at any second if it stayed on the trajectory that it was taking, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I just froze. I'm just standing there at that point because I'm like, well, I'm out here now. What the hell do I do now, right? And so I'm standing there and I'm waiting, and it comes around the corner, and I'm looking, going, wait a minute, that doesn't look quite right. And I realized at that point, that's one of the guys in the group. He'd gone off, hadn't told anybody, and was talking to his girlfriend on the phone, right? But what was funny was where he was sitting, these things weren't far from him that we could see.
Oh shit.
And he didn't even
You have
know they
no
were there.
idea. Totally
No,
oblivious.
he was on the phone talking to her, listening to music, and those things were probably 15, 20 feet away from him.
Like, hey, what's he doing? What's going on over
Right.
there with that
Yeah.
dude?
Exactly. That's what they were doing. They were doing. So that was a year ago. This spring we went back. We couldn't camp in the same area because it was flooded. So we had
Oh
to
sure.
camp up top. We couldn't be down by the river. We had to be up by the road. And we always get there a day early, get set up. We sometimes you got people that come in early, that type of thing. So it's Wednesday night. We've all gone to bed finally. I don't know, midnight, 1 o'clock, something like that. 2:30 in the morning. There is something across the road screaming at the top of its lungs at us. Um, Woke most of the camp up. And this one kid, he's a new kid. He basically had a tarp thrown over the back of his truck, right? I guess he came out of that like he was on fire when he heard that thing.
Because as we know, it's not a Black Panther that makes that noise, right?
No, no, they don't have the vocal capability to make that kind of scream, which he said too, once he got out, he could see something like crouched up the road because there was a pole light a little further up the road. He could see
Sure.
it. So he said, I'm not sure, but I could tell, it was only on two legs, type of thing. That was his first experience like that. He was sold. He's been to everything since, but we had that going on. And then we're going to bring the weird into this. We had gone down, right? The weird. Well, I'm still not sure I like this weird. I like weird, but I'm not sure about this weird. So
Okay.
we had taken a couple of groups out, and we had a group that was just going to sit at this boat launch while the other group walked the area, right? And we're dividing up, figuring out who's going where, the whole, just the logistics of it. And Robert says, y'all might want to come over here and look at this. Okay. Yeah, right. Mr. Skeptical is the one
I was going to say, I can hear him saying this.
Yeah. And so we walk over, and out in this field up the river from us was this light that's hovering over the treetops. And it's going back and forth, right? And so we're standing there watching it. Well, we've got this guy that's a ufologist, and we're like, he's like, that's a UAP. Okay. So we keep watching it. We're like, well, what do we do? What do we do? We're not UFO hunters. We're Bigfoot hunters,
Right.
So we call the rest of the group that was down at the landing up to where we're at, and we start showing them. Well, one of the guys is like, no, we're not having any part of this, And so the ufologist pulls out a laser light and starts hitting it with this green laser light. Well, it's not really doing anything. And we did ask him, we said, what's that laser light supposed to do? He goes, draw them into us. You should have seen the looks on the faces of these people. I mean,
why do we want to do that?
Right. We're like, no, we don't want to do that. And he's like, don't run, and it's like, okay, well, what are you supposed to do? We're kind of laughing about it. But he's like, yeah, normally that will kind of draw it closer to you. This thing was not paying any attention to his laser lights. And it would just move back and forth. Every once in a while it would like flip, And so we split into two groups. One group stayed and watched it. And me and Robert and Billy and Robbie, we took off trying to work our way closer to it to see if we could pull down another road or walk into it or something. We were up and down and places we shouldn't have been. And yeah, we couldn't, short of just absolutely bushwhacking through wherever, we couldn't get to it. We spent 2 hours that night watching this thing, messing with it, trying to get closer, and it never paid any attention to us. So we went back the next day and flew drones over the area, right? There's no houses. There's no pole lights. There's no structures whatsoever. There's nothing but forest along the river. So we were like, what is it doing, right? So the next night, we were going to we were splitting up, going to other directions. The gentleman that was the ufologist, he went back up there, and he was up there at about the time it got dark. And he's like, it's not up there, right? So there was a storm moving in that night, and some of the people decided to go ahead and break camp and leave. And so we were out. We'd been in a couple of places, and it was raining to the point you couldn't hear well, and so we're like, you know what? Let's go see if it's back. We were just looking for something to do. And we go back out there at about 11 o'clock, and it's back. Same place, doing the same thing it had done the night before, except this time it looked like it was even more exaggerated, and it's moving left to right, like it was moving in a bigger area. And it almost like it was
swamp gas or something.
Well, it's like, how do you have swamp gas along the river?
Well, true.
and it was in a flat area. It was almost like it was mining back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then it would like drop down and then shoot back up and start the back and forth, back and forth. And
So you saw a will-o'-the-wisp, you think?
I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was. I was aggravating the guy that's the ufologist, and I said, there's not going to be any like black SUVs show up at my house, right? Well, because I asked him, I said, do we need to report this somewhere? He goes, well, I've already taken care of that. And I'm like, okay,
How?
all right. Okay.
Who'd you call?
Yeah, right. Well, MUFON. He called MUFON, And so there was about 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, a black SUV in front of the house. Now, I don't know. We live on a pretty quiet street, and to have a blacked out SUV, makes you kind of go, I don't know.
Who's that?
That's a little, yeah, right. So, and I texted him. I said, there's a black SUV in front of my house. He was laughing at me. He thought it was quite funny.
I didn't send them. I don't know what that is.
I don't know who that is or what they're doing. But so anyway, but yeah, so that's some of the things and how we've got to be where we're at now. And not only, do we do the expeditions with the BFRO, but I also started my own conference here in the state of Missouri. And this year we will be having our 4th annual Ozark Mountain Bigfoot Conference. And yes. And you can get tickets at Eventbrite. And there's a couple of different tickets on there. One of them is for the VIP night that we are doing on Friday night. And it's going to be at the Elks Lodge in Ozark. And we're having a dinner. And then the speakers are going to be doing a podcast. And we've been talking about that. And probably what we're going to do is have the people write down a question, right? And I think what we'll do is we'll have the speakers, each one of them, just pull one of those out. And they're going to have to talk about whatever that question is.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we're going to record that. So that's going on Friday night. Saturday is conference. So if you go onto Eventbrite, you can buy the VIP ticket, you can buy the conference ticket, or you can buy them as a package deal. Now, this conference is different because we leave from the conference and we go to private property and we camp. Now, if you're interested in that, you have to go onto Ozark Mountain Bigfoot Conference page on Facebook and message to get the details of that and to get signed up for that. And that's the only way that you can sign up for that. So we've had experiences on the property that we camp on. The first year we camped, we had a couple of girls that were paranormal investigators who saw it. And it was actually behind Robert and I's tent. I was passed out. I was done. I'd put on a conference, I camp out, I was out. And Robert could hear it walking around and messing around behind the tent. We'd had a small storm. And so one of the girls was in her SUV and asleep, and she kept hearing something, and she kind of opened her eyes, starts looking around, and she can see it standing behind our tent. So the thing had to be over 6 feet tall.
Don't be standing behind my tent. I'm going to bring my mace.
But it was funny because everybody in the camp had some kind of experience that night. And luckily enough, they had all looked at phones or watches and could give us a timeline of it. So the next morning, when everybody's starting to talk about it, I'm hearing this, and we had a gentleman that we had to almost tie up to keep him from trampling what we thought were tracks. And I had to go get the tracker up, which is my buddy Shane. And he said later, he goes, I was going to beat you, because he said, I knew there was nothing out there, and you're making me get up to go walk around. And he had to eat crow because he was able to track it all the way around the camping area because the grass was really tall and it had stormed and there was compression tracks all around the camping area. It had even went in between our porta potties.
What's this?
It had been all over. Yeah, what is this? What are we doing with this? So yeah, there's the gentleman that is good enough to let us come onto his property. When they first moved in, they were getting rocks thrown on their metal roof in the middle of the night. And they don't have trees around it, so it wasn't acorns or walnuts. There were things actually being thrown on the roof.
It's amusement, do you think? Do you think they're just doing it for fun? Because it's like,
I think
don't know. They don't seem to be threatening.
They're not
right?
out
they're not
there
threatening.
No, they're just
curious.
Incredibly curious. Yeah, they're incredibly curious.
It's like, hey, that roof makes a weird noise, so we're just going to sit here and.
Yeah, we're going to throw stuff on it. Let's see if those hairless monkeys come running out of that house to see what's going on. See how ridiculous.
Apes,
Yeah, exactly. The one of the years that we camped out there, so they didn't tell us this till a couple of days into camping. They had went and bought 2 flats of eggs, the big cardboard flats of eggs. And they were sitting on the deck. The son forgot to take them in, right? So he comes back out the next morning. Well, so one flat is completely gone, just gone. And then there's a flat that's left, right? Well, there's no so coons.
What about raccoons? I was going to say raccoons.
Right. If raccoons would have gotten into it, they're going to tear into the plastic. There's going to be destroyed eggs everywhere, right? Same thing if the bears got into it, same thing. It's going to be a big old mess, whatever. They're trying to say the dogs, right? Okay, well, to carry
the dogs would make a mess too.
Yeah. So if you're going to carry off a flat of those eggs, you got to have hands to not make a mess, right? Exactly. So a couple of days later, they found the flat in the neighbor's yard with 1 complete row of eggs untouched.
All right, that's weird.
And the neighbor's trying to say, oh, the dogs did it. No,
the dog's not going to pick up the egg and eat it or whatever they did with it.
No, exactly. So that kind of stuff's gone on. Last year, we were on the hill above the gentleman's house, and the back half of our group got growled at. And we were sitting up there, and Shane was doing a lot of therming, and he was getting this hit that was about 5 to 6 feet off the ground and it looked like head and shoulders, but it was like moving around because myself and Marty, we sat down up there on the top of the hill and kind of made ourselves bait, and everyone else kind of stepped back from us, and we're just sitting there. And so Shane's going around and he's like therming, and he keeps getting head. It looked like a head and shoulders. And, it was approximately 5 to 6 feet off the ground. And he kept catching it here and there. It was moving through the timber pretty quickly, but it wasn't making any sounds. So, we're not 100% sure. We don't know what that was, but, it's awful odd, so there's a lot of activity out there. And it's really funny. That county in Missouri has the highest bear population, right? This guy never has bear on his property.
Gee, I wonder why.
Right? Exactly. So, it's interesting. It's interesting because there's a lot of land. I mean, there's one gentleman down there that owns just a ridiculous amount of land. Now they bear hunt. But the property that we're on, he has never seen any bear. And he said, you used to be able to track them through the conservation. They had like a website. I don't think they're doing that anymore. But he said it was really weird. He said you could see how they avoided the bears, like either just barely went on the edge of his property or went all the way around it. So,
Okay. So the
you
bear
know,
knows that, we're just going to go around.
yeah, the bear knows he's not
We
the
don't want to
biggest
go.
in the woods.
Right. We ain't going through here. We're just peacing out.
Yep. We're just going to skirt this and mind our P's and Q's and go on down the road here. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That county that we're going to, the nickname for it is Booger County.
Booger
So,
County.
Booger County. Why would you nickname a county Booger County if it didn't
I
have
got a
boogers?
book with the chapter on Booger County, all about
Yeah,
Booger County.
exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of sightings that go on over there all the time. It's a very active area.
There's just a lot of
So,
sightings of more than Bigfoot in Booger County. There's just a lot
oh
of
yeah,
shit going on in Booger County.
the gentleman was telling us, and I think it was back in the 20s or 30s, that there was a massive wolf killed over there. And it's actually in the newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, big wolf, something that should not have been down here, right? And
Yeah.
they documented it. There's some hunters that have told us that they've seen things that are way too big to be because I think red wolves, we do have red wolves, but not a lot. What we
Mm-hmm.
have here mainly is we have coyotes, we have bears, and we have mountain lions.
Yeah.
We do have mountain lions. I mean, the mountain lions are far and few, but we have them. We have more
Yeah.
little black bears than anything. And, these hunters are like, no, it is none of that. It is a large canine of some
It
sort.
is. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know. The property that we go on, the gentleman has said at times he has heard what he likens to hyena howls.
Oh, okay.
And he found some kind of odd tracks back around the first of the year when we had a snow, and also heard those odd howls. And he said when those happen, his dogs shut up and run for cover.
Even the dog's not
No
messing
part
with
of
it.
that. No, the
It's like,
dogs
nope,
don't want any part
not
of
having
it.
it.
No, they're not doing it. Not having any part of it. So I don't know what that is. There's, some people would immediately go, "Oh, that's dog man. That's dog man." I don't know. It's just another strange, yeah, just another strange thing that happens when you're out in the woods looking. Be careful what you're looking for. You might just find it.
You might just find it. You'll stumble
Mhm.
across it, or it will stumble across you.
That's it exactly. That's it exactly.
Stare at
So,
you for a while and go, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing
yeah,
over
it's like,
there?"
hey, look at me. Look at me. I'm right here. Yep,
Mhm.
exactly. So,
Mhm.
so Jennifer, do you want to tell us about some of the things you have lined up for our strange episodes?
Well, I'm still doing some research, but I'm trying to go along with the Bigfoot. I thought the first one we would do would be the Momo.
Yeah, the Missouri
I mean, because
Monster.
that's kind of a thing.
Right.
Um, I'm really drawn to just all of the just bizarre. Bigfoot's bizarre enough, but like the really, like Molly Crenshaw got a hold of me. Just a story about a supposed witch,
Right.
and she was killed by the town, and yeah, it's like, come on, I don't know.
Well, and you
And
and I've talked about. I think I sent you the TikTok on the Potosi cannibals, and it
yes,
was funny because 3 or 4 people had said that to me, and I'm sending
right,
it to you, and I'm laughing because what caught my eye is the map has a place called Monkey Mountain.
Monkey
I'm more
Mountain, and gee,
concerned
why is
about
it called
Monkey
that?
Mountain,
Hmm.
right? Right? Exactly.
Exactly.
I'm not, cannibals? No, I want to go look at Monkey Mountain. Come on.
Well, and then to go along with the dog theory, there's a story, and that we've talked about this. They're called booger dogs,
Yes.
and I believe the story is that a witch puts a hex, if you will, on a puppy about, a person that has harmed them or done them wrong, or of course it goes against every credo a witch believes in, but I digress. They put, some whammy, and that the goal of this booger dog in life is to hunt down this person that they've been whammied to kill or whatever, and then hunt them down. And my Missouri folklore book, there are plenty of stories about booger dogs and gentlemen being at a campfire and just this giant dog walking upon them and just looks like a hound of hell, and so it'll be fun.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe some creepy hospitals, because people think that cemeteries are scary, but cemeteries aren't the scary places. It's the creepy hospitals.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Tragedies have happened and horrible things have happened, and that's where the shit remains, not in the cemetery. That's a peaceful place to go and rest.
Right. Other than, a lot of people have Bigfoot sightings around cemeteries.
Now, why is that?
I don't know.
Are they just curious about us, and why are we putting that person in the ground?
I wonder if that's it, because we go out there, we maintain them, we mow them, we put flowers on them, we visit them, and who knows, maybe they've stood in the tree line and watched us bury people.
What do they do with their dead?
That's the $1 million question. Do they maybe bury theirs? I've heard people that think that they bury them also. So, I don't know. For every question you think you've answered, you
have 5 more that pop up.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's a lot, if you listen to encounters, there's a lot of them that happen around cemeteries, so it's like, why? What are they doing? What are they hanging out there for? Doesn't it logically, I would like to say, okay, they've seen what we do, so they're just in there at night being nosy, It's like,
so
okay.
here's something that I just now came to me that I can't believe I never asked you this before. So if they're watching us, observing us, are they on their own expedition?
Very well could be. Well could be. Let's go find those hairless monkeys and see what they're doing.
We're going to go on this expedition, and we're going to study them. We're going to camp over here in the woods
and watch these little crazies.
And we're just going to be quiet, and we're just going to watch and observe and see what they do.
Well, and that's one of the things is, a lot of people anymore are under the assumption if you just go out and camp like you normally do, that in and of itself is such a curiosity to them that they have to come see what you're doing. Because, okay, for one, we smell different and we're cooking and all those kind of things that go on. It's like that in and of itself would drive somebody or something crazy to see what was going on. Then if you've got kids running around squealing and, making all kinds of noise, there's that attractant, the other one is, there's a lot of them that think, they come in to check the females out, so I don't know. Well, females are just less, what do I want to say?
Problematic.
We're not as intrusive as males are, Yeah. We're not out there, got a gun strapped to us and everything else. Most of the time anyway. But, it's like they're just coming in to check things out, see what's going on. It's just a curiosity thing for the better part of it. We think. We don't know at this point. Half of this is we're just going off things that have happened to us when we've been out there before. So
and they have to be peaceful of its sort, because you haven't had any kind of trouble really. You had a lot of activity, but you haven't had any kind of trouble.
No, the only time there was ever any kind of trouble was in Kentucky. And this young gentleman, we were on the trail during the day, and he had one of those Aztec death whistles,
Oh
which I
my
did not
God.
know. Yeah, I did not know that's what he had. And he's like, "Hey, I'm going to blow this whistle." Well, it was just a bunch of us. It wasn't like somebody was out there leading or anything. We were just going down this trail, which I found a handprint on this trail, and
Oh,
it was like this, okay, in the
okay.
ground. You can see the thumb. It was not anything. I couldn't cast it because it was in leaf litter. I could take pictures. Some of the pictures are pretty decent, but I found it on this one side of this very large log. I mean, I had to crawl over this log, right? We'd crawled over the log, gone down, and we're on the point. And this guy's like, "Hey, I'm going to do this whistle." Okay, well, whistle, thinking he's going to put his fingers in
Okay.
his mouth, right? Oh
Yeah.
no, he pulls out an Aztec death whistle, which sounds like I don't even know, a banshee, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
He got a response to it real quick in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that was probably not the best idea. So Robert and I planned to go back with that group at night and go to that spot. And he was not feeling well, so we opted to stay in camp. And those guys got ran out of the woods.
Oh
They
shit.
got down there to where we had to cross the large log, and there was a log shoved in the trail on the other side of it. So they decided to stop there. They were smart enough to stop there,
Let's stop here. Yeah.
but every time they would stop walking, it would start growling at them. They couldn't find it
Nope.
as far as like therming and finding it, that kind of stuff. They couldn't find it anywhere, but they could hear it. If they stopped, it would start growling at them. So, needless to say, in a little while, I think there was 6 grown men. Some of them were ex-military that came back to camp that could not talk to us for about 20 minutes until they calmed down.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, some people would call that very aggressive. I call that mildly aggressive. But
Right.
if that kid had never blown that whistle
On that
earlier in the
whistle.
day,
Right.
that may have never happened. So I think when people are reporting these, what they call violent interactions, yeah, I think they've done something, whether they were out in the woods making a mess or being loud. I mean, just whatever.
Being destructive and just yeah.
Things like that, being disrespectful of the land, things like that. I think that affects the outcome of the interactions that you have with these things. If they look at you and go, "Okay, these are just a bunch of yahoos, I'm going to get them out of my woods." The
Right.
other thing too is I think if there are very small ones around and you get in too close, they're going to run you out of the woods. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, are they violent? I'm sure they could be. They're just like anything
They
else.
have to be. Right.
But they're so stealthy that if they wanted to pick you off, they could. And you'd never know it. And nobody else would know it. So I don't think that's their nature all the time. I think it's when they're put in the position of having to defend their home, their family, their hunting area, whatever it is, they will do what they need to do to get you out of the area.
Yeah.
Some people take the hint real quick, real fast, real well, and then other yahoos don't. So it has to, you know, become a little
Poke
more
the bear.
executive.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, and like I said, those are just my opinions because that's kind of what that's what's happened to us. We try to go
Sure.
in and be respectful and not whoop it and carrying on and making fools of ourselves or anything like that. And usually we have a pretty good outcome. You know, we're being respectful of where we're at and what we're doing.
So I shouldn't bring my Aztec death whistle. Is what you're saying on the camping trip? I should leave it at home.
Mm, yeah,
Okay.
I would leave it
Noted.
at home because you don't want me to take your whistle away from you.
Noted. No, I don't. That's true.
So yeah, this is going to be Jennifer's first time camping with us. Right. So
I'm going to get that Class A sighting, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, have you seen the, Jack Link's commercial of the darks and they're on either side of the tent and they're shaking it and laughing? That's what they're going to do to your tent.
Yeah. Or you are going to have some of your Yahoo friends go, hey, let's play a joke on Jen. Wait until she's asleep. Go out there and shake the shit out of her tent. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what a fun practical joker you are. I know what a fun practical joker you are.
I cannot confirm or deny that.
I can confirm it, and I will not deny it. Dragging your son along with you.
Well, they are practical jokers themselves. So
it was all his idea.
Yeah. Well, no. No.
Okay, anyway.
I promise.
Water under the bridge.
No scaring you while you're in the woods.
No, because I will not come back.
I know. No, we don't. We do not normally do that. That is not accepted. Okay.
It's just special for me.
No. Well, it was funny. We were on a private camp out with a couple of guys, and the one guy wanted to scare the other guy so bad. John wanted to scare Lou so bad. So John brought this recorder because he wanted to put it behind Lou's tent, right? Well, Lou didn't end up camping in his tent. He stayed in his car, so John couldn't scare him. Well, he set it behind his chair when we were all sitting there, right? And hits play on that, and Lou came out of his chair, and John's like, I was going to put that behind your tent. He just wanted to scare him so bad. So they took off to walk a dog back to the property owner's house, and they were all gone. And I looked at Robert and I said, you know what I need to do? And he's like, So I did go down and hide by the truck, and they get up to the truck. I jumped out at them. Boy, they squealed. John saw me, but Lou and at the time it was John's girlfriend. Yeah, I got them good. They squealed. Then there was another time we went camping with John and Lou, and John and I decided to throw all of our, not like paper trash, but food trash behind Lou's tent, hoping somebody would come visit him.
Bait.
Yeah. We were like, hey, are you hearing anything at night? Is anything? He's like, no. Why?
No.
I don't
know. Because we heard something, but we're just checking, make sure you saw it. I don't know.
Well, we were in a campground where the 10 coons were up on the picnic tables before dark. I mean, that's why I can't imagine they were not behind there picking that stuff up. But yeah, he about killed us when he found out we'd been throwing stuff behind his tent. But yeah, that's not normal. We don't do that all the time. That's not professional.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Good to know. Exactly. Well, we've gotten through our first episode. We hope everybody will come back and continue on this journey with us that we are starting, because we want everybody to show me Bigfoot. And with that being said, thank you so much for spending this hour with us tonight, and we will see you next week.